So, Rupert Brandt, Collector. This was a huge surprise of an animated film. Now, usually we get a lot of these like smaller animated films that are very kind of experimental with their art. But most of the time, I usually find that their stories kind of like veer off, or they kind of you kind of get too used to the magic after a while, or like the amazement of the visuals. But I gotta admit, this animated film really drew me in, and I could not get enough of it. Like the magic like never wore off here. Like I always felt like I was watching something that was surreal and sexy and experimental and so crazy and bizarre and cool all at once. So the premise of this film is that it takes place in, like, first off we got to talk about the art style. It takes place in a world where art is valuable, and all basically the entire environment and all the people in it kind of look like kind of like very different kind of like expressionist or different types of art styles. Like people have like weird shaped noses. Some of them have like three or four, even five eyes. Some of them have two faces. Some of them have extra limbs. Some of them are literally 2D flat in the way they move, and others just look very strange too. But here's the thing that I love about that nature. I love the fact that the whole world looks surreal. That when we actually get into the madness of dreams here, you can't tell if it's a dream or not, because everything looks so weird already. That when you get an even weirder subject of dreams, it's even more trippy. And that aspect I really love here, because the premise here is that Ruben Brandt is essentially a psychologist for criminals, for criminal masterminds who dabble in stealing priceless works of art, of money and jewelry, and he's basically trying to not cure them of their stealing habits, but cure them of their psychological problems. Like they might have dietary problems, they might not have the right amount of confidence, and so Ruben just kind of helps them. Now, the problem is that Ruben has a problem of his own. He keeps having nightmares where famous paintings start coming to life and attacking him. Like paintings will just they'll cloud his memory. He'll start having daydreams of it too. Like he'll walk into an art gallery and he'll see like an art come to life and try to like kill him, like try to like bite his arm, or like a cat will like scratch his face or kind of try to shred him up. And he keeps having these visions and he doesn't know how to deal with them. But he's trying to take his own advice, because his advice is, if you want to conquer your fears, you essentially kind of have to own them, to own up to them. So he decides to task another criminal by the name of Mimi, who's kind of like an expert art thief. And he relies on her to basically say, like, well, in order to conquer this fear, I'm going to say that we should steal these paintings. Because if I have them all, then I won't be afraid of them, which is his working logic here. But of course, like, it's not going to be easy, because Mimi's being pursued by Mike, this detective who's kind of been like her rival. He's kind of like, oh, I'll get you next time, Mimi. Who's basically been tracking her down all across the globe. And so you kind of have this kind of great little caper about these thieves going around stealing art pieces just so that Ruben can cure himself and get this kind of like this craziness out of his brain, the way that he does it. And that's cool. Like, again, I want to say this again, but it's amazing too, because like you have all these blending art styles, and then when he's actually tripping out, it feels real. Even like the only hint you have that it's not real is that his visions look more like famous paintings. So you start seeing like works of like Van Gogh start coming to life here, and start kind of like attacking him in various ways. And it's great. I love that aspect, because usually when you have like dream sequences, you can say like, oh, okay, this is a dream. Okay, I see what's going on here. But there's a few sequences where you're kind of questioning, like, okay, is this weirdness part of the dream world, or is this what reality is like here? Because the actual reality here is pretty crazy when you have like like three-eyed characters, characters that are literally flat, they can slip under doors and stuff like that. You have so much craziness going on here. That I love it. It's got this great weirdness to it, where it's kind of like it's kind of like the works of like kind of like Peter Chung, where it's like there's all these bizarre designs and this assembly to this world. And you don't question it too much, because if you question it too much, you kind of ruin the mystique of it, of of how crazy it is, and how how lived in it feels too. Um, the other thing too is like I love how experimental this film gets, like not just with the art style but with its storytelling as well. It has a action-packed climax where you have a car chase and helicopters and guns going off. You have just these amazing sequences of like tripping out and having weird visions. Um, like I said, it reminds me of like a whole bunch of like experimental stuff. Uh, and like the best that I can equate it to is Peter Chung's work on the stuff like Eon Flux, stuff that looked generally weird and surreal, um, and sexy and just bizarre, and I love how it's got like this fearless nature to it too. I love how it won't bother to explain like certain aspects. Like some characters look like they're kind of like still paintings, just like pasted into the frame. Some of them look like they belong in another painting somewhere else. It just it goes for it, man. That and the color too, the amount of colors they use, and how the interesting design of the characters. It's such a gorgeous film to look at too. It's a gorgeous film to look at. It's got great ideas here. It's got an actually pretty interesting story too. You actually do find out why Ruben is having these crazy visions of art coming to life. And it's actually kind of clever. And they go about revealing it in a kind of a bit of a twisty way that you can kind of expect if you kind of connect the dots as you're going. But it's still fun to see the way it plays out. It's an absolutely gorgeous film. It's directed by Milorad Kristik, who really needs who also co-wrote it too. He really, man, this film so far, this is like, I know it's early in the year, this is my favorite animated film of the year right now, because it's so daring. It's a lot like Into the Spider-Verse. It's very experimental, and it goes for it. It goes for designs that might seem too weird or too crazy. It just goes for it, and everything from like scenes of like trippy dreams to heist operations to action scenes. There's a really great fight sequence inside an art gallery where they start using different bits of art to try to like like bash the heads of like security and make their way out of there. And it's just I'm almost kind of at a loss for words of how to describe this film. It's one of those things you really got to see it to appreciate how daring it is with this art style and how crazy it is with assembling this type of story. It's almost kind of like the film that I wish Velvet Buzzsaw would be, because you remember Velvet Buzzsaw was about like art paintings that come to life and start killing people. This is kind of a similar premise, except it's a little bit more is it or isn't it type situation. That I love it. I love the ambiguity of it with the two. That and the whole surreal nature to it. So Ruben Brandt, Collector, 4.5 out of 5 stars.